Hello and welcome. It's fantastic to have you here. I am here live. I'm just going to sign into the chat thing so that you can see the stuff on the screen, and that should only take me, 3 or 4 circumnavigations of Saturn around the sun, and by that point we should be up and running and ready to go. So hopefully there should be no issues with this. And you'll all be able to hear me, you'll all be able to see me, and whether that's a good thing or not is up for debate. Click allow for that. That should now be working. There we go. Oh, that's exceptional. Absolutely exceptional. I'm a little bit quiet. Right. I can make the audio. I can move the microphone close to me. And I can also turn the mic up a little bit if I need to. Right, so this, let me just turn this up a little bit more. There we go. Hopefully that can be a little bit. Yeah, my hair's atrocious. It's currently about 10 to 11 AM on Monday the 4th of this month here in New Zealand. It's a public holiday today, which means that people that normally work 9 to 5 or Monday to Friday don't have to go to work, so it's a perfect opportunity for me to come in and do a live stream and share a little bit of time with you. So yeah, my hair's atrocious. I'm not one that cares too much for my physical appearance, as you can probably gather, but yeah, I thought I'd share some time with you. So I've got a few things that I want to talk about today. I've got obviously just the opportunity for you guys to ask me some questions and share some time in that manner, but I've also got 4 instruments surrounding me that I want to show. Actually 5 instruments that are around me at the moment that I want to show you. So my granddad passed away a little while ago, a couple of months ago, and he was a fantastic example for me, a fantastic musician, and a really excellent guy. And he had a bunch of instruments that I never knew about, actually. And I thought what I would, and what's ended up happening is some of them have been handed down to me. Most of them need a lot of repair and a lot of work done to them, but I'm still going to show you them anyway. Oh, somebody's added a super chat. Can you teach yourself trumpet, or do you think somebody should get an instructor? Thanks, James, for your question. Yes, you can teach yourself an instrument. I taught myself trombone when I was 7. I've been playing cornet since the age of 4. And yes, you absolutely can teach yourself an instrument. However, if you plan to be, if I'm still a bit quiet, I'll turn the volume up a little bit. Hopefully that's not too crazy. If you plan to be serious in an instrument, then I recommend you get a tutor. And the reason why you should... Oh, okay, is that now too loud? Alright, I'm just going to assume the audio is okay. If you need it louder or whatever, then change the volume on your PC or mash your headphones into your ears. So yeah, if you're serious about becoming apt on a particular instrument, then I really do recommend you get yourself a tutor. There are a whole bunch of bad habits, bad techniques, all that sort of stuff, and if you teach yourself, then there's a high likelihood that you're going to fall into that pit hole. The most successful strategy for learning an instrument is to find a tutor who can help you along, and then just do all of the practice yourself. If you're just seeing a tutor once a week, then you don't do any practice other than that time, then you're never really going to develop particularly quickly or particularly far. It's all about taking the stuff that your tutor teaches you and developing your own practice regimes around that stuff. So hopefully that helps. Right, so there's a whole bunch of different questions. Now I'm only gonna answer the questions that I can see on the chat thing here. So if the question doesn't come up, then you can do what's called a super chat, which will highlight it. You donate an amount of money to go along there, and it shows up in greater prominence. So if I don't answer your question, then you should still be able to see it there. A person with a name I can't pronounce because it's not in English. Trent, do you have a rotary trumpet? I've got several rotary trumpets. You can see them. No, this side. This here is a rotary trumpet in the key of F. So it's sort of like a bass, tenory sort of trumpet in the key of F. This here is a rotary trumpet in the key of B flat. I've also got two more additional rotary trumpets that are on my queue of things to restore at some point in the future. English, Trent, do you consider this channel to be entertainment or educational first and foremost? There isn't really an intent for this channel. It's not necessarily intended to be first and foremost educational or first and foremost entertainment. It really started as a way for me just to put some stuff up on YouTube and hopefully, you know, see if anyone was interested in it. So I produce some stuff that hopefully comes under the column of educational. I certainly hope so. I also produce some stuff that has no educational merit whatsoever and would just be entertainment. And if you guys are entertained by anything that I do, then that's really good. Sharkman, how dumb am I from a scale of 1 to 10? I'd have to say I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. Gabby, Trent, do you know where I can find a Mellophonium to buy or rent? eBay is your best bet to try and find any used instruments like that. Where can I find a good euphonium for purchase? From Alexander Clark. A good euphonium, then there's bound to be music shops. If you search for music shops in the US, you'll probably find something. Otherwise, eBay would be a good choice. My general thoughts on instruments is that you don't want to get anything that is as cheap as possible, especially when it becomes a new instrument, because in particular, most student-grade instruments these days, or at least a lot of them, are made in China. And the stuff that's made in China goes from really, really atrociously built down to the cheapest price, not worth a cent, and the stuff that's actually really good. And so if you sort of start in this segment where you're getting stuff that's not bottom of the range, sort of middle of the range in terms of price and upward, you're generally going to have a little bit more luck. I see some person is being a little bit abusive, so let's remove that. Skinny jeans. Oh, I can make them a moderator. No, I don't want to do that. Hide user. I can do that. Right. What is my opinion on the Yamaha 321 Euphonium? I don't know that model off the top of my head. I know a lot of Yamaha Euphoniums have the 4 valves up the top. And the good thing about the 4 valves up the top is you don't have to use your left hand. If you happen to have a deficiency on your left hand, then that works fine. The downside about most 4 valve upright euphoniums is that virtually all of them are non-compensating. So if you need the compensating element to the instrument that you play, 4 valve with all 4 valves upright is not necessarily going to be the best option. There are instruments that have the 4 valves down the side. Sort of like, you can't really see it, but this euphonium here, or this baritone here, that has the 4 valves on the side. Those instruments are normally not too bad, and some of them are compensating. Most of them aren't, but some of those ones are. Jazz Jeeves, Ask Jeeves, what are your thoughts on Yamaha as a brand? Generally, their newer instruments are pretty good. Some of their Xeno line is absolutely fantastic. Some of their older stuff is absolutely atrocious. It is pretty poor, but some of their newer stuff is up there with the best that you can get. Techno Bro has donated $1. Thank you so very, very much. I don't think there was a question with that, but yes, thank you very much. Dylan Ross, why would a bass trombone have dependent valves rather than independent valves? What advantages lie in a dependent system? Right, Dylan, I have played a couple of dependent systems in my life, and I generally find to be a little bit more responsive. With an independent trigger mechanism, you've got the two triggers stacked on top of each other, and so they use up more of the pipe that goes along your neck, sometimes called the goose pipe. And there is a school of thought that suggests that if you have that second valve attached to the main tubing of the instrument, it reduces the resonance of it slightly. It has less tubing than an independent trigger system, so it can be slightly lighter depending on the way that manufacturers use. So there are a bunch of different reasons why you might or might not choose one. Really though, it's up for personal choice, what you want to play, what you feel best with. I will say that with an independent trigger mechanism, you've got the opportunity to use the second trigger by itself, which opens up a new realm of alternate positions, and that obviously you don't get with a dependent system. Do I have piping Pepsi? Do you have a favourite football team? Well, not only do I really like Pepsi, but do I have a favourite football? No. Football in New Zealand is not a national sport. We follow rugby union, which I'm a supporter of the All Blacks. Woo. I don't really follow too much sport. Right, so anyway, there's a bunch of different questions there and things like that. As I said before, if you were around that, if you want to really point out something to me, then you can do a super chat. But I now want to show you some of the instruments that I've got. And I'll start with the one that's probably in the worst condition. And that's this one here. This one I didn't inherit directly from my grandfather when he passed away. This one, I'll show it over this side. This one was actually in one of my uncle's possession, but he sent it down to me because it needs a lot of repair, and he thought that I might be able to do that. So I'll grab this instrument out, pieces. Oh gosh, there's another person asking me about my size. Sure, I know I'm overweight, but do you really need to ask? Anyway, right, so I'll bring out the pieces of this instrument one by one because there's several pieces on them. First is this, just a standard mouthpiece, a Boozy & Co. London mouthpiece. Nothing particularly interesting about this. The way with some old cornet mouthpieces is that they don't have a cup-shaped cup in there. The cup has actually got perfectly sloping sides, and it's also called a sometimes called a V cup, things like that. But anyway, that's the mouthpiece of this. I'll remove the bell next because the bell is separate on this instrument. This is the bell, and it says Joseph Wallace & Son Limited, London, Paris. Now it's got a whole bunch of solder marks here there where it's been repaired a number of times, including on here as well. The crook of the bell is not actually too bad, but the instrument, the part of it that I've shown you so far, has got Joseph Wallace & Son written on it, London and Paris. I've never actually heard of Joseph Wallace, so I need to do some research on that, so I'll just put that down. And the rest of the instrument is there any other, oh, there's a lyre here as well. The rest of the instrument is here. Smells awful, and it has a number of interesting things about it. The first thing that I notice is that the finger button, two finger buttons are original. This one here is something that somebody has just soldered on. So if you look at the bottom of this, you can see just a lump of solder where somebody has soldered this button, and I think it literally is a type of button, onto this valve shaft here. And it says on it 1999 Pippa Blick Vanuatu something on it. So it's just, it looks like a little button that somebody has actually soldered onto the top of that. And judging by the fact that it says 1999, then it's actually something that my granddad probably did himself. It's got a lead pipe that you can remove, as a lot of old cornets do. And so the valves themselves kind of work. Let me take one off and see what it looks like on the inside. So we have our, let me just put this down, we have our sort of standard old style valve arrangement where you have a big washer on the top that goes up and provides the compression of the spring. Nothing particularly interesting to say about that. So yeah, that's what the valve looks like. As also with some very old cornets, this one has a sort of double leaf spring design. on the water keys. So we've got 2 water keys here, and then we're supposed to have one lever for this that comes and articulates or operates the mechanism over both water keys. The downside of this particular approach is that you need to ensure the pressure is the same on both, otherwise you're going to have leaks, but otherwise it doesn't seem to work too badly. I actually notice on this that this branch was actually originally supposed to go over there, but this side of the branch is broken off and somebody's just bent this to push down over there. Don't know why they did that. I also noticed the length of the water key opera mechanism there is something I've never seen. I've never seen before. That's a bit interesting. So anyway, this is one of the instruments that I've sort of inherited from my grandfather, and I'll put that away. It needs a lot of work, it needs a lot of cleaning, it needs a lot of restoration. It might be beyond me, but I'll give it a go at some point. So that's the first of the instruments that I acquired from my grandfather that I wanted to talk about. But before I go on, I'll answer just a couple more questions. Christian Sarabia says, yep, thank you for your valuable contribution. Amazing Ace says, why isn't he answering questions? Wasn't that the point? Well, this video is for sort of 2 purposes. 1, answering questions. 2, talking about some of the new things that I have got. So there's sort of both of them. Kuro, so Trent, how's your day been? Not too bad. It's 11 AM this morning. I haven't really done too much today, to be honest. It's a public holiday here, so that means that I've got the day off, so I thought I'd come and share it with some of you guys. Tuba Kid Daniel, which tuba do you think is the best? That depends entirely on the sort of music that you're playing, the sort of key that you want to play in, etc. As far as my experience goes in the brass band world, we have the E flat and B flat upright tubas. The B flat tuba is probably my favorite to play on, is the Best and Sovereign BE994. E flat tubas I enjoy playing on the E flat equivalent of that. Although I notice that the John Packer that we've got is not too bad, and things like that. So yeah. Joe Bell, the cool kid, would you prefer mellophonium or mellophone? Well, mellophone is sort of not necessarily just the name of an instrument, it's the name of a family of instruments, so it's a bit hard to answer. Personally, I think the entire family of mellophones is a bit pointless, if I'm honest, but you know, they exist. They're still used a lot in America, less so anywhere else in the world. In fact, I've never seen any group in New Zealand ever that uses a mellophone, or even less in mellophonium, but you know, that's as it is. I accidentally swallowed my mouthpiece. What should I do? Nothing. If you've swallowed a mouthpiece, then you should probably let Darwin do his thing there. Mitchell Hendricks, how do you get brass stuff not to not smell awful? Brass, by its very nature, is going to get tarnished. It's going to get a bit of corrosion, and well, not necessarily corrosion, but a bunch of muck attached to it. You can keep it clean, which will help. I use Brasso or Silvo on brass, depending on how dirty it is. But if you really want it to stop smelling, then put a coat of lacquer or clear coat on it. You need to be very careful not to actually interfere with any of the operation of the instrument itself, but that will prevent the smell of brass and the feel of that raw brass coming through. Tubica Daniel again, have I been in a marching band? No, we don't have them in this country. The whole American marching band drum corps scene just doesn't exist. I've done street marches, which is where you form up in a band and you just march down the street playing things. I've done that a few times, but no, we don't have marching bands in the American definition of marching bands over here. Sharkman, I love the mini sousaphone. It plays perfectly in tune. What do you think? I think that you should watch my videos about the mini sousaphone that I used to have, and you just sort of imagine that being part of your life. Ugh. Does window cleaner keep instruments shiny? I have never tried to use window cleaner on an instrument, and I probably wouldn't. Yeah. Zachary Holzman, would you consider yourself a music theory nerd? probably not. There are a lot of people out there that are much more talented than I am, much better at music than I am, much better performers, much more knowledgeable. In fact, it's not particularly uncommon to find somebody that exceeds my capability in every element of music out there. The difference, I guess, is that I just have an interest in sharing some of that stuff. I don't have a particularly fantastic memory, so I have to do a lot of research before a number of my videos and things like that, but there's nothing that makes me special. There's a whole bunch of people that are far cleverer, far more talented than I am, and probably far more qualified to create YouTube videos. So, am I a music theory nerd? It's probably not when you compare myself to some of the people that have actually got, you know, really advanced degrees and all the rest of it. Right. Let's see. There's some other questions here. What's your opinion on the Yamaha YTR 2330? I don't know. Let me see what a Yamaha YTR 2330. Student trumpet. It just looks like a standard trumpet. I don't know. I've never played one of those things myself. So pass. Does that answer that question? Probably not. Oh, somebody says, hello Trent, I have a mini sousaphone lying around at home, but I find it's a very temperamental and out of tune instrument to play. Shall I sell it or keep it since it's somewhat a rarity? I recommend you have a look at the videos that I've done on the sort of tenor sousaphone that I've done. I think the video is under the title of the world's most out of tune instrument or something like that. If it's made by SAI Musical or any of the Indian things, then it has no musical value as an instrument, and it's just something that you can do whatever you like with. Does my wife know how to play, and are you teaching your daughter anything? My wife does play brass instruments, or at least did before she had jaw problems and jaw surgery and things like that. Our little girl doesn't yet play anything. She's only just over a year old, and it's more important that she learns the other fine motor skills rather than just going straight into playing an instrument. She does enjoy making a whole bunch of noise, banging things together and whatnot, but yeah, so we can go from there. Hello sir, my high school will provide me with a Yamaha Neo Euphonium. I'm wondering if it was worth it to purchase my own anyways. If your school is going to provide you with a Yamaha Neo, then I suggest that you take advantage of that for as long as possible. You will know yourself if there's any point to you owning your own instrument. Obviously your time in the school is going to be limited. You're not going to be able to play it forever, but whilst you've got the opportunity to have something that good available to you, then take advantage of that, I say. Do I hate it when somebody throws a walrus at my grandmother? Both of my grandmothers have passed away, so it's not really a situation I've had to deal with or even give a lot of thought to. Whilst they were alive, it wasn't a common problem. I remember back a few years ago somebody tried to, but thankfully we were able to intercept that walrus by offering it a fish, and it didn't actually end up being a problem that we had to deal with. MLGS5 or SSJ, whatever. What would you do if your daughter only learned woodwind? If my little girl wants to learn any instrument, then that's fantastic. I think music is an absolutely incredible gift. I think it's something that should absolutely be nurtured, and it provides brilliant opportunities to, as a person, to grow and develop. If she decided that she wants to play a woodwind instrument, then I mean, realistically, I'll just be happy that she's playing music at all. It's entirely her choice to play. That's the political correct answer, just in case my wife's watching this. If she isn't, then she's up for adoption, no question. How many instruments do I have? I've got many. In my recording studio / workshop / garage / the environment that I'm in, I've got about 60 different instruments in various states of in various conditions and things like that. I've also got a storage unit with probably another 10 or so. So yeah, I've got quite a fair few. They're not all usable instruments. A lot of them are either waiting restoration or something like that, but I've got quite a fair few. I've also upgraded my chair recently. Well, when I say upgraded, I've replaced it. It doesn't have wheels, it doesn't tilt backwards and forwards or go up and down, so it doesn't squeak when I make videos. It isn't very comfortable, unfortunately. Right, I think it's time to show you my next acquisition. This one is a little bit better condition, and it's got some notes and documentation and things on it. It's also this is a Boozy and Hawk's Cozy Cup type mouthpiece. Again, it's got the V-shaped cup in it, so instead of your normal bowl-shaped cup. And this one is a bit. This one is more of a family heirloom. There's a document in here that just says that it was played by my granddad's great uncle or something like that, who played it in the Colliery Temperance Band in the late 1800s, the Wingate Colliery Temperance Band in the late 1800s in England. And it was also played in a miners band on the west coast by my great-grandfather. So this one is a bit more of a family heirloom. It has a lot of wear on it, but I will show it to you anyway, and it is this. You'll see a lot of brass showing through. The silver plating has worn off in many places, but what this instrument is a Joseph Hyam instrument. It says standard class exhibition prize medals awarded to J. Hyam, maker, 127 Strangeways, which is a street, Manchester, England. And so it has a lot of elaborate engraving, and the coat of arms here is actually embossed onto it, or at least it's made into it. They have a machine that will stamp the coat of arms onto a piece of brass, and then they solder that piece of brass to the front of the instrument here. It has a lot of wear marks on the sides where, as I said, the silver plating has worn right through, but the engraving goes all the way up to the top here, so you can see it. It's quite an elaborate style instrument. The bottom of the valves have sort of like a three-leveled dais sort of approach to them, and it is quite a nice instrument. The valves are all pretty worn down, which is what you would expect from an instrument of this age, but they're still in reasonably useful condition, reasonably usable condition, I should say. They have the similar valve design to that other cornet that I showed you before, in that it has a washer and it has the spring integrated into the valve, so if you turn it upside down you're not going to have a spring fall out. And it is quite a nice instrument. Unfortunately, the valves do have a bit of wiggle and slop in them, and that's just something that's caused by the availability of the manufacturing machinery that they have at that point, plus also the wear that this instrument has clearly had. Thankfully, though, this instrument hasn't had a too lot of repairs done to it. It's actually in pretty nice, mostly original condition. Now, if you do have an old instrument like this, oh, somebody's done a super chat. Daniel King, Trent, thanks for all the content. Just wanted to say thanks. You are most welcome. You are most welcome. Thank you very much for your kind donation. There was a TV ad in New Zealand a long time ago that had that song. Thank you very much for your kind donation. Anyway, going back to this, there is a this here is a Monster valve oil, and it's this is the smoother variety, and I find that this works really well for older style instruments because the valve oil is a lot thicker than normal valve oil, and it creates a better seal around the valves when you've got an instrument like this where the valves themselves have a bit of play in them. So it is quite a nice instrument. I haven't played it particularly much. I don't actually know whether it's in high pitch or low pitch. I suspect it's in high pitch, but it is, as I said, nice. And I'm going to clean it up one day. I might pay to get it re-silver plated. I'm sort of in two minds about that because I actually think the gold, the brass and silver colour through it demonstrates that it's had a really nice, a really well used life. It was played by my great granddad and my great granddad's uncle, and my granddad and things like that, so it is very much a family heirloom that I want to keep in pretty good condition, usable condition, etc. So anyway, I'll now put this down very, very gently. Some of you might be wondering why I'm not actually playing any of these instruments, and that's just because my audio setup when I do live streams is pretty, is a bit wobbly, so trying to do anything trying to do anything is a little bit difficult, especially when I can't actually hear myself, so I don't know whether the audio volumes are all right. And when I ask questions about audio volumes, I get people saying too quiet, too loud, don't know, it's just fine, etc., etc., which makes it really hard to judge. So a few other questions here. What are my thoughts on the Gibson brand? My main tenor I haven't put this paper back in the case. My main tenor trombone is a Gibson 3047 AFR, which is a single Thayer valve B flat F trombone, and I think it's a really nice instrument. It's not in great condition, but I got it cheap because it wasn't in great condition, and I enjoy playing it. It's a nice instrument. It's very bright. You put any amount of air through it and you get a very bright sound, but it's probably the nicest tenor trombone I have. Somebody else, it looks great as it is, don't replate it. I'm inclining on that point of view myself, just because it's also very expensive to replate it. So when I'm unsure about something, I'm often more inclined to lean on the side of whatever's going to be cheaper. Somebody's asked about my 6-valve trumpet. It's actually up here. It's just a wall hanger because of how useless it is. Anyway, yeah. Your case appears to be just a sack. No, it isn't. It's an actual. It's an actual case. It's this style, sort of leathery, coated fabric case thing. I've just wrapped the instrument up in a some padding material, just so it doesn't rattle around in there, because it doesn't actually hold the instrument in the middle. It just sort of, you put the instrument in and it can rattle around. Do you play any instruments that aren't wind instruments? Yes, I have a digital piano over there. I have a digital pipe organ over the back there, which I can hardly get to at the moment. I play bass guitar a bit. I tried learning acoustic guitar, but wasn't really interested in that. So yeah, I do play some non-wind instruments. Right, are there any more questions that people have got? I got a 3C mouthpiece, but from the top it looks the same as a 7C. Visually, the two mouthpieces look pretty similar, so that doesn't surprise me. I can't find Gabrielle's Oboe in the key of C for Euphonium online anywhere. Well, I suggest you go and transpose it yourself. Just write it out and then change the key. Jazz Jews, or whatever it is. Are you a hobbit? Yes, I am a hobbit. I'm a 6'3" hobbit. Well, at least I was 6'3" before I had my back injury. I'm now about 6'1.5" or something like that. How does one bathe the P-bone? What you want to do is get a bath of acid and then put that in there in the hope that the whole thing gets dissolved and you just have a mush of stuff that you can flush down the drain. That's how I'd recommend you deal with a P-bone. Am I a professional P-bars player? Absolutely. Yeah, if you'll see my video on the P-bars, you will know I am a fierce brand advocate for the P-bars. No, not really. Yeah. What is my favourite member of the trombone family? Look, any tenor bass, contrabass trombones, alto trombones, they all have their point. Soprano trombones less so, piccolo trombones even less so, but they all have a point and they all have a value, so I don't really have a favourite per se. One of the things that I'm going to show you that is coming out in a video recently is my Harrelson. I've done a review on the Harrelson 5mm modular mouthpiece kit. So this is a kit where you can combine various components of a mouthpiece together and create the perfect thing for you. So I'm putting out a couple of videos on these in the future. Any of my Patreon supporters will have actually already seen that video because they get early access to things. But I've currently got a cornet set up here, and this has got a very similar to some of the Dennis Wick, some of the sort of larger Dennis Wick 3, Dennis Wick 4 size mouthpiece. Produces a fantastic sound, and I absolutely love using it. But this is the Harrelson 5mm modular mouthpiece. There's a couple of things that I'll say about this in relation to some of the questions that have been asked. This is a raw brass finish, and you can see it's got quite a lot of tarnish, quite a lot of stuff on it. If you hold it and rub your hands on it, you can smell the raw brass thing, and that's just a characteristic of having a raw brass finished instrument. Or somebody says, I have a Besson Sovereign 928. This is a Besson Sovereign 921, I think. This is one of the earlier Besson Sovereign. It's the round stamp model. I actually picked this up at an antique at a second-hand store for a stupidly cheap amount. So it was quite nice. This is actually the same model of cornet that my dad played for a very long time, although it isn't the actual cornet. I tried to get the actual cornet that my dad played, but they wouldn't sell it to me, which is a shame. But I now have a cornet that is the exact same model, so every time I play... oh, yeah, no, you're right. This is a Boozy and Hawkes brand, owned by the same company, because Boozy and Hawkes bought Besson, or vice versa. And so you have the Sovereigns. The earlier Sovereigns were marked by Boozy and Hawkes. The later ones were done by Besson. Effectively the same company, just different brand. I conduct a local Salvation Army band here, and when I'm not conducting, I play a Besson Sovereign 928 model cornet. This is the generation before, which is a Boozy and Hawkes Sovereign, and I think it's a 921. I'm not too sure on that. This is a large bore model, so it's quite. I enjoy playing it. I mean, I'm supposed to be playing tuba at the moment for another brass band, so I shouldn't be playing this too much, just to change my lips, but I do anyway, because I'm a naughty boy as far as that goes. So that was a question that somebody had about the raw brass experience, and what that was. There was going to be something else that I was going to mention, but I've forgotten what it is now. So I'll just put that down there. I'll also show you this. This is my homemade tuba stand that I use. I got a floor stand for a trumpet, so this is a trumpet floor stand. I've got two pieces of steel tubing that fit inside each other. I drilled some holes in it, and then you just put a nail inside it, and then the top of this has got a little hole in the top where you can put the bottom nipple of a bass or a tuba in there, and so this holds the tuba on the ground for me. The reason why I do that is because of my back problems. I can't hold a tuba up very well, so I need some way to put it on the floor, and this provides me with an adjustable mechanism. Pancake Power, do Harrelson make a modular mouthpiece set for trombone? No, they don't at this stage. Trumpet, cornet, flugelhorn is the three sort of instruments that they make. Trent, have you taken part in brass band competitions? Yes, I absolutely have. I've done that a number of times. What are your favourite test pieces to play? Which have you found the most difficult? I don't know. I don't really have a huge memory for test pieces and things like that. Yeah. Hello, Anthony Barrington, hello from Juilliard. Are you a Salvationist by chance? Yes, I am. I have been all my life. I'm a 7th generation Salvationist, and I conduct our local band, one of the local brass bands in the area. I'm a 3rd generation bandmaster or conductor if you're out of that particular circle. My mum conducted a band where I grew up for about 20 years, and my granddad conducted a band periodically. So yes. Have you ever thought about getting a chimbasso? I'd love to get one. They're too expensive for me to be able to justify. So if anyone wants to send me about $2.5 grand to buy a chimbasso, then yeah, absolutely, please do, and I'll spend it on a chimbasso. But I just don't have anywhere near that to spend myself. Noah asks, what size mouthpiece do I use for a trombone? That depends on the type of music I'm playing and the type of trombone that I'm playing. If I'm playing a bass trombone and it's low bass stuff, I use a Denniswick 0AL. If I need to be a bit more flexible in my bass trombone playing, then I play a 2AL, because I find that the 2AL being slightly smaller gives you better tuning throughout the range. If I'm playing second trombone or something, I'll generally play either a 2 or a 4AL size mouthpiece, and if I'm playing lead trombone, then I'll usually play something like a 6BL size mouthpiece, just because it helps me up in that higher register. So depending on what part of trombone I play, depends on the size. They're all Denniswick mouthpieces. I prefer Denniswick mouthpieces. Not that I've tried a huge amount of mouthpieces for the trombone, it's just that I've liked Denniswick. They work for me, so I've never really bothered to go and investigate much further as far as trombone mouthpieces go. Somebody asked, how often do I stream? Not nearly enough, just every now and again. It's quite a faff for me to get this setup out there. Trying to get my monitor. I've got a little table that I have to wheel in front of me, and I put all my setup stuff on this, and then I have to put it away afterwards. So it's a bit of a faff to stream, but I do it now anyway. What is the primary trumpet that I use? Generally, if I need to play trumpet, I play my Gene Paul TR430, I think it is. It's not the best trumpet I own, but I keep this out and have it sitting next to me, so it's usually my go-to if I need to play a trumpet. I haven't played it for a while. The valves need a little bit of lubrication, but yeah, so that's my sort of go-to. Not my best, but it's probably the one I end up playing the most out of my trumpets. Mace and tasty play, I don't know what that means. Have you ever thought about buying a baritone sax? Yes, I have. A long time ago, I was actually about to buy one, but then I think some common sense kicked in and realised that what's the point of spending a lot of money on a baritone sax when I don't play in a jazz band, I don't have anywhere to use it. It's just something that I wanted. So yes, I used to really want to buy one. I never went any further than that though. Josh, where do you live? Because it says 11:20. Where did it say 11:29 on the screen? Oh, the timestamps. Yes, I'm in New Zealand, so it's actually 11:26 a.m. on my. No, 11:29. My clock on my computer is a few minutes out, so I should probably fix that. Yeah, so I'm here in New Zealand. A lot of people think I'm from the UK or from Australia. I'm not. I'm from New Zealand, which is, you know, woo, the land of the free, home of the brave, etc. Is there anywhere that you can get music supplies that aren't marked up 2 billion%? Yeah, trying to find music supplies, music, all the rest of it is really quite hard. Yeah. Jonathan asks, have you ever been in a jazz band? Yes, I have. My school had a jazz band. I played lead trumpet through that. I also played in an Aspire big band, which was a local big band for a period of time. Oh, excuse me. And I played bass trombone with them for a period of time. Interpretive jazz, where you have the start of a piece, the end of the piece, and then the middle is just 15 minutes of people just doing stuff. It doesn't interest me at all. It doesn't resonate with me. It's just not my scene. I don't mind swing music. I don't mind sort of some of the poppy sort of type musics and things like that. But I'm a musician where you see what's on the page and you just try to play it as best as you can. Interpretive music, I don't get it. I've never studied it. I've never really got it. I appreciate and respect the talent for those people that do play that and can just see a chord and just go to town on that, but it's just not for me. Somebody has been asking about a euphonium, but I've obviously missed that. Very concerned about your thoughts on a 5-valve euphonium. Please indulge him. There are 5-valve euphoniums. I don't know what your questions were about them, so I haven't seen that then. Can you make mouthpieces out of materials besides hot glue? Yes, you can make them out of plastic. You can make them out of metal. Believe it or not, there have been some pioneers in the art of mouthpiece making that have used metal as a element for making mouthpieces. You can also make them out of wood, but hot glue is probably the best because hot glue mouthpieces give you the best experience. I think that's just fantastic. How do you transpose in F? I'm learning to and see it as adding 7 flats. Is this a good way to look at it? This will try to help us on. I'm not sure the use case in which you would want to transpose if you're playing an F instrument. Adding 7 flats certainly doesn't sound right. I need to sit down and, well, I am sitting down. I need to have a think about the best way to do that, but yeah. Alexander Clark, hey Trent, are large shank tenor trombone mouthpieces compatible to be used on large shank euphoniums? Yes, the mouthpieces will physically fit. Generally, I've found that on a euphonium you want a mouthpiece that's better to be in tune across a wider range, whereas on a tenor trombone your general usable range is limited to whether you're playing second trombone or first trombone, but the mouthpiece shanks are the same size. The Found Mystery. I have a trombone with 1 trigger, but I can play pedal F without using it and pedal C with it, and I can play super high F also. Well, I don't know if you want a middle. I can play high notes too. I can also play loud notes. I can play semi-breves. I can play all of that sort of stuff. So I know there is a lot of musicians that are only interested in things like how high can you play, how loud can you play, how low can you play, things like that. I can't stand that mentality anymore. I used to be one of those people back, you know, when I was 12, who thought that playing really high was super cool and playing really loud was super cool, but it just doesn't interest me anymore. I think it's just so beside the point, and it's a stereotype of sort of some brass players that I just can't stand. Have I ever played the old-fashioned G bass trombones? Yes, I have. I own 2 G bass trombones. One's 110 years old, one's about 70 years old. I've never learned exactly all the slide positions because the slide positions are different. They're also quite difficult to play because the bore is very small, so you create quite a very thin sound. But one of the newer of the two, the 70-year-old G bass trombone that I owned was played by my granddad for 40 years. So that's also my other granddad for 40 years. So that's something that's pretty cool. And I'll never get rid of that instrument as long as I live, because it means something to me to have my granddad play it. Yeah, let me have some more water. Right, so this is sort of also talking about new acquisitions. I've got a couple more instruments that I want to show you. This one here is something that I bought very cheaply off eBay, and you'll see why it's very cheap. But it is a HN White instrument, which is a brand that I really I like. I like HN White as a brand because I think they made some fantastic stuff. This is a King Master model cornet. And although I've sort of polished the bell section a little bit here, the rest of it's in quite bad condition. There's a lot of denting around there that I don't have any way to get rid of at the moment. The lead pipe here has got a big crack in it. There's also another one up further. But what makes this one interesting is that it's actually a B flat and C cornet. You can rotate this valve here, and that will add or remove this loop of tubing here. So if you add this loop of tubing in, it becomes a B flat cornet. If you cut that length of tubing out, then the tubing just goes through there, and it's a C cornet. So I want to get this instrument restored at some point and try to get it to work. One of the things that's a little bit interesting about this is that each of the tuning slides have a little notch in them, or a little ring around them, so that you know where it should theoretically be in tune for B flat. So there's your B flat position, there's your C position, and all these tuning slides have a little ring around them there, so you can show them where they need to be. The valves on this instrument are a little bit interesting because these valve guides, they've actually got 3 prongs on them. So you've got sort of triple prongs to show where the valve should be orientated, which means you can put it in and insert it 3 different ways, one of which will be correct and 2 of which will be incorrect. The spring in the middle doesn't actually have any sort of support down the middle, so that could buckle and go off on a complete wild tangent somewhere. The rest of the valve shows a bit of corrosion and things, but it doesn't have the sort of big washer that goes up there. It's just got this sort of 3-pronged thing there. It needs cleaning, it needs restoration and all the rest of it. The valves are a little bit tighter than the high-end instrument that I showed you a little while ago, but yeah, it's an instrument that I like. HN White, the King stuff, I find is really good. So I just want to, this is on my list of things to restore. The holes in the bottom are quite a lot larger than what you'd see too, so that's just another thing that's a little bit interesting. Am I going to try and fix the lead pipe myself? Yes, I am. I haven't decided how I'm going to try and fix it. There are 2 thoughts where I could replace the tube from sort of here to there, and just replace this length with something that's just got the right diameter. I actually think that this tubing though is conical. The diameter there and the diameter here I don't think are the same. I think it gets wider, so that might not be a practical way of repairing this. The other way is just to simply clean this up and put a little plate over the top, solder the top over here. solder something over the top. It will add a bit of turbulence to the air because you've got that on the internal pipe. You'll have the gap and things, but that's sort of what I'm thinking at this stage. So yeah, we'll see. One of the other things I'll mention about this is that when you're playing the instrument, you've got the numbers on here 1, 2, 3, so you can actually see the numbers of the valves whilst you're playing. I don't know why you need that, but if you were playing and you needed to know what number the valves were, then yeah, absolutely, you've got them written on, and this very early King HN White instrument is the one for you. Stephen Butters says New Zealand is just a discount Australia. And of course an Australian would say that, because when an Australian writes sentences of at least 6 words, the amount of intellect that they can pour into those words, it degrades, so they're not really able to make sense anything more than about 4 or 5 words. So yeah, that's about the best I'll expect from you. That wasn't really a good comeback. What's something better I can say? I know. Stephen Butters, I hope your parents have got several other children so they won't mind that you're such a disappointment. How's that for a comeback? Oh, you're American, by the way. Well, that doesn't work then, does it? Anyway. Yes, there is an island near New Zealand called Disappointment Island. It's where Stephen Butters' family comes from. No, I won't say that. Somebody asked, what model French horn is this behind me? This is a Joseph Little brand of French horn. You can see a video that I've done on it. 2 more instruments that I want to show you. The one I'll show you first is this here. This is an alto-y tenor horn. I'll buy you a chimbasa if you promote SAI Musical. Woo, go SAI Musical. They are just out of this world. The quality is something that you will have never seen before. What else can I say? The workmanship is unprecedented. What else could I say about SAI Musical that can be interpreted both ways? The tunefulness is unlike anything you will have ever heard before. There we go. There's my promotion of SAI Musical. This here is a... Oh, hold on the other side. This here is an instrument that I also inherited from my grandfather after he passed away not so long ago, and it's a Besson. So we're starting off good there. It is a Besson Brevet F Besson. It actually says F Besson on it, so it's one of the earlier ones. This was made in 1885, judging by the serial number here, and I don't actually know if it has a special sort of name, because most alto horns or tenor horns, depending on what part of the world you're in, they don't have a round design like this. Most mellophones of this age don't have a bell that points straight upwards. So this is an instrument that I've never really seen before. And it's got a couple of interesting characteristics on them, one of which is that every tuning slide has got a whole bunch of different markings on it that you can change, so you can change the pitch of the entire instrument. So if I just take this 3rd valve tuning slide out here, it's got markings on it for the key of E natural, E flat, D, D flat. So you can have this instrument playing in the key of E natural, E flat, D, D flat. Let me see if my camera will focus on this at all. Yeah, so you can sort of see that this instrument is designed to be played in a whole bunch of different keys. And the main tuning slide here, this is the C main tuning slide, I believe. You can take this out, and there would have been other crooks that you can take. Oh, I need to put it on this side. That you can take the tuning slide and replace it and change the key that the instrument is in. I'm actually going to move this over there so that I can hold things up on my preferred side, and I might move over. No, that's the wrong way. There we go. Oh, my age, things are hard. And there's my microphone in the corner if anyone's wondering what that is. So this instrument, yeah, it's got a lot of repairs that have been done to it. This here, I believe, is fiberglass that, that somebody has just done over there. So that's a bit interesting, but pretty much every joint has a whole bunch of soldery stuff on it. Oh, luggage. Thank you very much for your donation, Luggage. Hey Trent, do you have any advice on circular breathing on trombone but keeping a good tone? The bigger the instrument, the harder the circular breathing is, and it's just something that you're going to have to deal with playing bigger instruments. Generally, you want to have as much air stored in your cheeks as possible and work on getting rid of them. Work on creating a tone through pushing air with your cheeks, as opposed to you know, trying to starve the air. You need to breathe in through your nose as quickly as possible because you're going to be using a lot of air very, very quickly. Jonathan Ralston, do you know how many instruments you have? In total, I've probably got about 70 or so different instruments of various conditions and in various whatever the rest of it. So anyway, going back to this, I don't know what this instrument is supposed to be called, whether it's just a tenor horn that can play in the key of E natural, E flat, D, D flat and C, or whether it's something else. I want to restore this, clean it up and things. My concern though is that although I think this is fiberglass, I don't actually know how to get this off. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. All of these solder joints that have been repaired there and all the other places, they're not going to be too bad. I mean, there's another one that's been completely butchered. But I shouldn't say butchered because it's probably my granddad that did that. But yeah, there's some work that I want to be done on it. So just having a look at the valves on this, they all actually work pretty well. See, unlike cornet and trumpet valves, other valves on other instruments just tend to be simple shafts of metal that have a spring at the bottom. And there's only really cornet, trumpet, and trumpet valves that try to do things clever that I've experienced anyway. But the valves all work pretty well on this. So it is, yeah. So it's an 1885 Besson, F. Besson instrument, some sort of horn. And it's got a lot of repairs that need to be fixed. It's got a lot of work that needs to be done on it. But the fact that it's designed to play on any key from E natural to C is pretty interesting. So this sits up behind me on my wall of many things, and there's been a few people that have asked questions about it. I'll just put it down here for now. But yeah, so that's where that instrument came from. I'll put this back over this other side now. What are some other questions? How do you destroy an oboe whilst making it look like an accident? I don't think you need to worry about trying to hide the fact that you've destroyed an oboe, because I think most people will call that common sense. Do you have a French trumpet, and is there anything special to say about French trumpet sounds like Selma or Antoine Courtois? I've played a number of Courtois instruments. I don't think I own any. I can't remember. I do have a couple of instruments that were made in France though. One of them is my 2-valve flugelhorn, which is right behind me here. I'd have to stand up and get out of the way for that. But you might have seen me do videos on it previously or whatnot. So I do have some French instruments. Besson did a lot of their instrument manufacturing in France for a period of time, so I've played on them. Generally the instruments are fine. I don't really have too much to say about them though. Beezy says, why aren't alto or tenor horns more common? I never see them really. It depends where you go. Brass bands and British style brass bands use them as part of their core instrument makeup. They're like the viola or the second violin of the brass family, the brass band family, and so you see them all the time in British style brass bands. If you don't live in a country that subscribes to the British style of instruments and of brass bands and things, then you won't have seen them. Do I recommend any Ophiclide brands? I think the only company that's making Ophiclides now is Wessex, that makes it sort of like a reproduction Ophiclide. From what I know about, from the very little that I know about Ophiclides, is that they're not really an instrument that you try to create beautiful pieces of music out of. They're just something you try and put up with. It might not be particularly a fair estimation of the situation, but yeah, they're not refined musical instruments. Mouthpieces and the sort of way that we produce sounds and keyed instruments in general aren't really the best approach, but yeah. Oh, Pudgy Toaster says, sorry Trent, I'm a few thousand short of the Chimbasso. I'm very sorry to hear that after all my compliments of SAI musical. I'm very disappointed in that. Trent, would you rather be a clarinet player or a viola player? Don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Right, last instrument that I'm going to show you. I think I might have actually mentioned this before, and I'm going to. I've got a video that I've half recorded and half edited that I need to sort of finish doing at some point on this instrument. But it's an instrument that I really, really, really like, and it's something I never thought I'd own, and it is my Besson Enharmonic Cornet. So let me just put this case down. This here is a Besson Enharmonic Cornet. Now, some people that follow me on Facebook will have seen this, and that's cool, but it's something that I never thought I'd ever own. What makes this particularly interesting is that it is in perfect working condition. The valves work fine. I've actually played this in a band when we're doing at some point. I've played this in a group. It works well, and despite the fact that it is 112 years old, it still works really well as an instrument. What makes this particular instrument really special, though, is the fact that it has built-in compensation for it, but not in the same way that you would get from a modern-day euphonium or tuba or something like that. What this instrument has is it has 2 second valve tuning slides and 2 first valve tuning slides that are used depending on whether the third valve is pushed or not. So if you've ever watched my Science of Tuning videos, probably some of my more educational content on my channel, you'll know that when you use valves in combination with each other, they tend to get progressively sharper, sharper and sharper depending on the number of valves you've pushed down. One of the ways that Besson decided to come to solve that problem was with something that they call the enharmonic system. So the air firstly goes through to the third valve here. If the third valve is not used, then it goes through the shorter second valve and the shorter first valve, down this long tube down here, and then out through the back of the instrument through to the bell section. If you do use the third valve, though, it goes through the third valve, through this third valve tuning slide here, through to the first valve over here, and then it goes through the bigger first valve tuning slide and the bigger second valve tuning slide before joining here and then going out the back of the instrument. The reason why they do that is that on a normal cornet, and so if I grab just a normal cornet here, if you use first and third, the result is a bit sharp. If you use third and second, the result is also a bit sharp. If you use first, second and third, the result is very sharp. Whereas with this instrument, it's got a longer first valve if you are using the third valve, and that prevents the issues with notes getting sharper and sharper. They also made euphoniums and bigger instruments that had this in 4-valve variety, which just had a massive amount of extra tubing on it, and so the instruments unfortunately didn't last very long as a concept because of the weight behind them and because of all the cost that was associated with that. This instrument is in low pitch because it was designed for the American market, so it actually plays perfectly in tune, and as I've said before, it actually works. I've played it in a couple of groups out in public and it works really well. The valve is about twice as long as you'd expect, and it has twice as many holes as you'd expect, and as a result of that, pushing these valves down is a little bit difficult. It was a little bit different to just normal valves, but they work perfectly fine, they articulate perfectly fine, and this instrument is just a remarkable condition. This is probably one of my most special instruments that isn't a family heirloom that I own, just because of how rare it is, because of what condition it's in, the age of it, and the fact that I never thought I'd ever own one. So I'm really, really happy, I'm really excited about this instrument. Yeah. It's a beautiful instrument, but if you want to hear it, you're gonna have to wait for me to put the video out on the instrument, because yeah, that's how I do work. I also the mouthpiece that I use on it, I'll just briefly mention, is a unmarked mouthpiece, but it also has the V-shaped cup, and it is a mouthpiece of a similar age to the instrument. And that's the mouthpiece that I find that works the best with them. Right, so time for a few more questions. What is my favourite type of cheese? Don't know. Haven't really thought about that. I don't have a mentally tabulated form of where I store my cheese preferences, unfortunately. How much do you usually spend on buying new trombones, and how do you look at buying them? As for budget, I don't really buy new instruments, but if you go and look at one of my videos on buying second-hand trombones, then hopefully that will give you an idea. Would you be interested in a new wall decoration? I have a weird low B-flat mellophone. I can send you some pictures of it if you like. Yes, absolutely. Beezy, please do send me some photos, images, whatever. You can get in contact with me on Facebook. There's a link to my Facebook on every other of my standard videos in the description field, or you can send me an email if you want to do that. Get in contact with me through Facebook itself. Or my email address is just trenthamiltonnz@gmail.com. So if you want to send me some photos or whatever, that would be fantastic. Yeah, sure, I'll take a look at it. How long till the end of the stream? I've done pretty much most of what I'm gonna do. So when people start getting bored, I'll probably hang up, so to speak. Have I heard of a chimbasa? Yes, and I've mentioned chimbasa quite often through this. I'm wanting somebody to get me a chimbasso one day. I'd love to play one, especially one of the ones in F that you can put in either F or E flat, one of the 5-valve chimbassi. Even the Chinese make a reasonably good one. I'd absolutely love one, but they're about $2.5 to $3 grand to buy, and I just don't have that sort of money. Does anyone have any further questions? Oh, somebody said, just wondering, when you were in school band, how did you count your music? We count ours down up, but I've seen people count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. How you count your music depends entirely on your time signature. Music that's written in 2 will just be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Music that's written in 3 will be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Music that's written in 4 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Music that's written in 5, when you come and beat 5, that tends to be a conducting difference from conducting, but I normally go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Music in 6 can either be conducted in 2 or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is what I normally do. So yeah, it depends. It depends entirely on the music. Have you ever heard of the Nosal Brass? Yes, I have. I absolutely respect them and admire them for their talent. I listened to a concert live that they did in Wellington a number of years back, and it was an incredible experience. They're just absolutely fantastic. I have never played a Bach Stradivarius 42BO. The 42B is really well known and well respected of Bach trombone ranges. I think the O stands for open wrap, so that's what you would want as opposed to a closed wrap, although I understand with Bachs they don't tend to matter too much. Froyo, I have a 4-octave range in the tuba. I don't really care about range myself, but I really need to improve my articulation and tone in the lower registers. Do I have any tips that could help? I'm playing B-flat tuba in a local band as we go to our national competitions in about 2 months' time, well, a month and a bit time, and I'm sort of struggling with some of the same things myself. What I hear the best thing to do is to get a tuba mouthpiece such as this, sit at a piano and just practice buzzing, being able to buzz down to those low pitches. It's a lot easier to play a low note in an instrument than it is to buzz it in a mouthpiece, because in an instrument you've got a whole lot of back pressure, which creates which means that your lips can vibrate lower a little bit easier, whereas you don't necessarily have that, or you don't have that at all when you're just playing a mouthpiece. But that's what I've been told works really well. So look, we've been going for about an hour or so, so that's probably about all that I'm getting a bit tired, and I've got other things to do today. No, actually, no, that's not true. I don't really have other things to do today because it's a holiday today. But I thought I'd just spend some time with you. Thank you for those people who have joined me today. If you've asked questions that I haven't seen or whatever, then I'm sorry that I've missed them. I just want to take a big shout out to my Patreon supporters. The Patreon video, the money that I get from the Patreon supporters really helps to go and make my videos a whole lot better. I'm going to be investing in the next month or two in some new microphones and hopefully some new lighting stuff, and hopefully that's going to make the quality of my videos a little bit better, but of course that's quite expensive to do that. I'm looking at, I hope if my wife's not watching this video, I'm potentially looking at spending $1,000 or so on new microphones. If my wife is watching this video, then I'm just joking, of course, and not spending anything. But it is my Patreon supporters that really help that to happen. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you also to the people that have made donations throughout this video. YouTube takes about at least 30% of any money that you donate through this, so that's what it is to use the platform. But oh, somebody's been moaning about me not answering a question. Lead trumpet in a marching band, top CD mouthpiece recommendations. Look, just whatever is comfortable for you. If you've got a lot of money to spend and you're interested in professional stuff, then I'll never say no to recommending a Harrelson Modular Mouthpiece Experience, because you can just dial in what is going to be the best for you. I have about 50 trumpet mouthpieces in my collection. There's probably only about 40 or so, and so the Schilke 14A4A is a really good lead mouthpiece. There's some jet tone ones that work well. The Kelly Screamers if you want a plastic mouthpiece. But yeah, it's really up to what works for you. A mouthpiece that works for me is not really going to necessarily work for you. So it's about practice and it's about learning about your own facial embouchure and things like that. Oh, somebody says that they've got a Shargirl Apridato 3C. I saw a Shargirl Apridato for the first time about a week ago, was it? And I want to get my hands on it so I can do some playing around and see what I actually think. The Shargirl Apridato is a mouthpiece that's got a jacket around the outside, so it sort of looks like a megatony sort of looks actually a little bit like this in terms of concept, except this is usually a bit thicker and it goes down straight. And this jacket, this cup, or this part on the outside is filled with water. I think Apridato is a historic god of something or whatever, but it's a water-filled outer jacket that surrounds the mouthpiece. I've never played on one. I've heard that they're brilliant, but they are about €400 to buy or something like that if you buy them new, so they're ridiculously expensive. That's more than I earn in a week, so I don't think I'll ever invest in one myself, particularly because the Harrelson that I've sent does everything I need it to do. But yeah, so there's that. Yes, thank you very much for joining in. It's been great to have you here. If you're not a supporter of mine on Facebook, Patreon, whatever, please feel free to consider it. It really does help. But thank you all for joining in, and I hope you all have an enjoyable evening / afternoon / whatever the rest of your day is going to be.